This is Coda Radio, episode 127 for November 10th, 2014. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our excellent host on the East Coast, the great Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Me surround the whole galaxy.
I like how I feel like I amped up the drama for 127, like in that intro. I played it up a little bit, kind of gave you a grander entrance, and then you come in with Jar Jar.
You know, I almost came in with Picard.
That'd have been good, man. I think I would have liked Picard.
So the problem is, I have a habit of, when speaking as Captain Picard, like slamming my fists into things.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this far, no farther!
No.
This isn't what I wanted at all.
That kind of thing. I got you.
Chris, you know what?
Yeah.
As Linux users, you've made too many compromises already.
Oh my gosh, dude. I am having the worst week I have had in a long time. And I don't even want to say why because I get so much hate just talking about it. But
now, okay, say why. Now I have to know.
It's stupid. You would think that I have taken some horrible political stance. You would think that I have come out for like some sort of egregious organization that violates human rights.
The Free Software Foundation.
It's just simply that I switched to Firefox for a week and it's been going very badly for me.
Because Firefox is not working for you, or because people hate you?
I make a bet that this will be the first show in a week that I record where my browser does not crash on me during the show. And you're like, oh, that really sucks when your browser crashes. Well, guess what? When you're driving a show and the visuals are inside a web browser and it's part of production and you're doing a live show, it does suck when your browser crashes.
So
it sucks a lot.
My inner Clippy would like to recommend Google Chrome.
Yeah. I'm going to go get, I'm going to go get the developer edition of Firefox and I'll be all right. You know what the thing is people get all upset. I think it's great that Firefox works. I mean, I think it's a really nice browser. I really like Mozilla. I wish it would work for me. But, anyways, I digress. I don't want to turn the show into that. But I have been getting a lot of hostility about it. Like, I guess I'm just surprised that so much anger comes out over something like this. But I guess I shouldn't be.
Hostility and anger on the internet over one tech product over another? That's shocking to you?
It shouldn't be. All right. Should we get into some emails?
Of course.
We do have some emails.
Speaking of hostility.
But we do have a hoopla coming up this week, too, don't we? We have Mike's been in the trenches, and he's going to share a story with us. That is the worst URL I have ever seen.
Did you like how I did that? Did you like how I did it?
Where did you get that URL from, dude?
I may have misclicked something.
That is a totes Google search result, right? Yeah. I don't know what that is, actually. No, I'm looking at it. All right, our first email comes in from Jason. He says, after listening to the program, I went online and I checked out the online version of Microsoft Word to work on a document just to see what you're talking about in response to the complaints, I guess you could say, of responsiveness of HTML5 apps. I could not see any slowness at all. The icons never took more than a second to appear, ever. I only have a 5 megabit connection, and I'm in Mexico. Also, browsers like Chrome and Firefox have technologies to cache things like icons locally. There's no reason they should take more than a few seconds to appear, or should take a few seconds. I think it's most likely due to bad implementation. I think for video editing, an HTML5 app would be stupid. But in most cases, HTML5 is a good option. What really drives me nuts about HTML5 apps is having to run them in my browser. I use Chrome's Create an Application shortcut a lot, but I still want my application to look like an individual application. I don't want them inside my browser. So, we got a lot of responses in regards to some of our comments about HTML5 performance. And it all kind of was like, yeah, it seemed to be pretty like, yeah, I see it, it bothers me, or it's not really a big deal. And I don't know, Mike. I mean, did you take away anything from our... we have one more from PT Day. Maybe I should read that first. Let me read this, and then let's talk about it at whole, so that way we get all these out. So he says, this is PT Dave, friend of the show, writing in. He says, I feel the pain on HTML5 and Cloud IDEs, which you brought up. With HTML5, technology is just too spread out. You have languages such as Dart, JavaScript, and iterations on top of those. However, we keep pulling from dependencies and add time and memory usage to all of these things. Now, honestly, I feel the answer to this is just to use JavaScript and no third-party dependencies, regardless of how little or how light they are. The flip side is that JavaScript sucks. The solution to all of this, I feel, is just hasn't been invented yet, and it won't be a standard until that's truly reached. I hate rendering individual pages and prefer doing a single entry page that renders and loaded once. Also, PHP is a terrible language that should be treated as a zombie. Wow. He says, now for Cloud IDEs. I have been looking for a good one for a while. I would love to have a DigitalOcean droplet with the sole purpose that has me develop my applications on a web interface. Cloud9 thus far has been the best I have seen. My ultimate goal would be able to buy a cheap laptop with great battery life and then just develop on that. Then have the beast of a machine for my gaming. I don't want to mix gaming and dev anymore. PT Dave. So let's talk about the HTML5 app thing real quick. I don't want to spend the whole show on it, but so it seems like people were pretty divided. Some people seem to think that they have been under-delivering. I thought about it more after our show, and I thought, I think some of the complaints that I had were definitely today problems. That listening to that episode in 2016, hopefully those things won't really be an issue. But fundamentally, how do you get away from... There's a couple of things about web apps that I think at the end of the day bother me about them. One of them, our writer mentioned, being stuck in the browser, right? Even when you remove some of the Chrome of the browser, it's still in the browser. That's like a huge runtime dependency. It's kind of weird. It's just this weird, like, half-app thing. And number two is, I'm going to get a little hippie on you, but all of these things are connected to back-end closed-off infrastructures that I have no oversight, I have no control, I have no implementation, I have no details on the implementation, I have no idea what type of password security they're using, what type of storage mechanism they're using, and it's totally dependent upon their services. And these companies, all of them that are the forerunners in this market right now, and what I mean by that is by commonly used web-based applications, the real big deployments, like the Google Docs, and the online office, and all of the really big stuff, a lot of them are tied to companies that adjust their web strategy depending on the marketing opportunity. And so their entire product line can take a massive evolution and direction change when they feel like it's time to pivot or whatever their reason is. And that is unsettling to me, whereas I feel like a standalone, compiled binary that runs on my desktop, it's offline. I have a clear indication of what the backend storage is because it's my file system. I know what the security implementations are because I've done it. And if they decide the next version to go pursue a new direction and I don't like it, I can continue to run the old binary. Whereas with the online apps, I cannot.
Well, no. So, right, you can't.
Well, tell that to all those XP users.
Right. I mean, an operating system and an app are a little different, though, right? So let's think of it as a simple app like, I don't know. Well, there's, the Facebook app, right? If you have the native Facebook app on your phone and don't update it for 2 years, the Facebook API may change, right?
Right.
Like
yes. Right. Yeah. Sure.
Most native apps are going to be tied to those back-end infrastructures that you. I'm
almost more okay with the sort of more casual, more ephemeral type apps. It's the stuff that I use to run my business where I kind of feel like, and when I say look at those XP users, what are most of those XP users doing? They're running XP because they're running some super old application that requires it, right? Or some super old application that would run just the same on the next version of Windows, so there's zero incentive to upgrade. That's really what they're using these systems for, and they're taking advantage of it today. It sucks for Microsoft, but it's great for the end user. I feel the same way about Final Cut. It's a critical application for us here at Jupiter Broadcasting, and a couple of years ago, man, they made a crazy-ass change. They threw out all the code, rewrote the sucker based on iMovie, and people lost it, right? And you know what I did? I held on to the Final Cut 7 binary for a year, and I ran it when I needed it. And that's how I made the transition happen. If that was Google Docs, and I can specifically say this because I use Google Docs for the production of our shows, one day I log in, and they've completely re-implemented the way the display page shows all my docs, or the way tabbing is handled in the document. It affects the workflow. I wouldn't have upgraded to those features if I had the option.
So you're saying because it's possible for a native app to give the user the ability not to upgrade and keep certain like UI elements, things that don't affect the running of the application.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with more of, I mean, it really comes down to having the...
Like, as a developer and someone who, you know, either sells software or software services or whatever you want to say that I do, I hate the idea that users can opt not to update.
Right, I know. I totally do understand that from like an IT...
To me, the biggest advantage that HTML5 developers have over, well, me, is that they control end-to-end the experience, right? If an HTML5 developer decides that he doesn't like, you know, the teal that he has on his web app, right?
Right, he just pushes out an update and everybody gets it.
Pushes an update and they get it as soon as their DNS or whatever, right? Like, as soon as, really, literally, almost instantly.
Yeah, I think that is the sweet thing, but you see, I feel like it gets abused.
Well, you might say it gets abused because, what, people are a little more fast and loose with QA?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe so.
Remember when QA used to be like a whole career track for developers?
Remember how stuff used to sit in QA for years and years?
Right. Yeah. Like, remember when companies, like every decent software company had a director of QA?
Remember how the reputation of a company was based on how good their QA was?
Well, no, but like the director of QA was like a legit director.
Right.
Like, he was a straight up exec, just like right next to the director of finance.
To them, it was an important role. Yeah, and so there is that. There's definitely that. But, you know, I just want to go back to the Final Cut thing. Like, there is a certain point, too, where it's too much change, where the developer's interest no longer align with the established user base interest. That's where I primarily see the conflict. And it's not so much with, like, the HTML5 app that, you know, Mike gets hired to write for a company, and then, you know, their 100 users or 10 users or whatever use it internally for 5 years. That's one thing. It's another thing when it's like these staples in our consumer meal of computing that have always been part of the industry are now moving to this model where they're going to be doing this to us. And I think when I add it all up, so like last week I focused a lot on the performance. It, you know, to be honest, it's generally acceptable. And I got to admit, it's gotten so much better than it used to be. I think the performance gap will be closed over time. But the issues I raised today are not as easy to fix from a technological standpoint.
You know, it's funny, though, because we finished a couple projects, actually, last week. And I was doing the deployments for the customers, because these were actually App Store projects. And, you know, some are iOS, some are Android, right? After doing, like, 2 Android deployments, having to go into iTunes Connect was a horrifying experience. And we had recently, we deployed a new website for the company, and we deployed some customer websites, too. The whole web deployment model, like, I definitely as a dev see the advantage.
Oh, for sure.
Like, particularly against like the Apple iTunes, like, oh, your P list doesn't match. Oh, so sorry. You know, it's kind of. I think native apps are always going to have a place, but I think it's going to be very. It's going to be very tough to be a native developer when you have to wait 2-3 weeks to do an update.
Well, and what do you do in a world where no platform reigns dominant? Like,
well, like we had a customer who is cross-platform, right? So he's Android and iOS. And we were done with the project. So we had to come to him and say, listen, we're good to deploy. He looked at it, loved it, happy, happy, happy. Even wrote us a very sweet testimonial, actually. Then we had to tell him, all right, when can I be on the App Store? Well, you could be on the Google Play Store, like, tomorrow.
Right.
The iOS Store, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That's
such an awkward conversation. Like, do you launch an Android first, or do you just kind of sit around and twiddle your thumbs?
Well, but, yeah, I mean, there's definitely that element.
Like, but just bringing it back to HTML, I was kind of thinking, you know,
you could deploy immediately. You can deploy immediately.
Right. And this project would not be appropriate as a web app, right? Like, this is definitely it makes sense as a mobile app, but like if it were something that would be appropriate as a web app, having to just be able to, you know, hit the command and do it is great.
I see. I think what's happening is developers are incentivized by all of the pros, but users are going to sit back and start to think about the cons, about how the interface and the features will change on them. And, you know, thing that I think there is a new form of lock-in. and it's so much better than the old Lockin, man. It's so much. The old Lockin looks quaint. Oh, you have your files in a .doc, .xls? That's quaint, right? The new Lockin is you have hundreds of dollars invested in this ecosystem. You have all of your data invested. You have your entire social graph applied to this, like I'm thinking in this case Google Docs, where right, it pulls in my entire Google social graph where I can share documents with anybody that's I've got in my inbox or is circled. Right, it integrates in with Hangouts. It's this amazing, unbelievable. Finally, it is 2014 style Lockin, and it is here. It is gorgeous, and I think end users will start to push against it a little bit.
So can I say something without starting a row in chat or no?
Probably not, but go for it.
We're moving off of Google Docs. We had a major Google Apps outage for about a day.
Yeah.
And we literally lost the sale because of it.
Oh man, that would burn me so bad. So what are you going to use instead?
Not a big sale, but I was still pretty butthurt.
Yeah, of course.
And your old friends at GoDads are having a great sale on Office 365.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah.
And it's actually cheaper than Google Docs. Plus, we don't have to pay for Office licenses for our salespeople.
That's very true. That's very true. And
zombies don't run Linux.
So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm pretty sure it's IIS in this case.
Oh.
But, you know, it happened when I had to call Google for support.
Oh, I'm sorry,
pushed
what?
me over the edge.
Yeah.
And so I waited on hold for like an hour, first off. Like, that's their opening move. Then I get transferred like 3 times. Because, like, oh, you called the wrong Google Apps line. This is Google Apps, not Google Enterprise. Oh, we're Google Work now. What the hell's the difference? Apparently they rebranded like a month ago, and I was unaware of it. So I called asking for Google Enterprise. And it's now called Google Work.
Ooh, Google Work. They should have done Works, because then it'd be a play on words. Google Works.
Yeah, not so much. So supposedly, like, our domain renewed and something happened. And first they said it was our fault. I'm like, well, I've had the domain for 5 years. How the hell is it my fault? Like, I haven't touched it in 5 years.
Trust me, I haven't been messing with the settings.
Yeah, like, believe me, that's what I pay you for. Like, I don't do IT admin. I don't like it. Okay. Well, don't worry, sir. We'll do it for you. Here we go. It'll be up tomorrow morning. All right. I'm pissed, but whatever. Tomorrow morning comes. Now, this whole fiasco starts, I think, like Wednesday night. Tomorrow morning is Thursday. I call him on Thursday. Hey, Google, WTF? You know, still down. Hang on, sir. Let me check your MX. Let me check your MX records.
You're like, no, we've been down this route already.
I'm like, you know what? Okay, go ahead, right? Because anything's possible.
Yeah, okay. You're like, you know what? Fine, follow your script.
Yeah, your MX records are correct. Thank you. So what now? I don't know. I said I was told there was no outage and this was my fault. I said it's okay if it's my fault, but if it's my fault, I should be able to fix it.
Yeah, and can you tell me if it's my fault? You need to be able to tell me where it's at, because it's obviously not in my DNS record. So where is it?
Well, there's nothing you can do other than change your MX records. We control the whole thing. We have the whole. They were nice about it, but then I had to get transferred again. So.
Gosh, dude.
What they ended up doing was having to reset the whole thing and like set me up as a new customer. Like, I had to go in and put a text file on my website for like 5 minutes, sit on the phone with them. Like, something weird happened with the account.
So they reset you up. So they had that text file is like they verify you and stuff like that.
Right. Like, something happened where the verification, I don't know, didn't work. So, and to my knowledge, they don't re-verify you. So none of this makes a lot of sense to me. Because why would they ever verify you more than once? Is that, you know what I mean? Like, why
unless it's just like part of the initialization process they have to go through.
Well, the only thing I could think was like that, like the host, you know, we have like a 5-year thing with our domain, like it just renews.
Yeah.
Maybe when they renew the domain, they did something for like a minute, and then because when I got in, the MX records were right, so I didn't know what to tell them. I said, dude, I'm looking at it. You know, this is our domain registrar. I sent them a screenshot, like. I'm not on drugs. My first thought was maybe they updated their MX records and I didn't read the email, right? And maybe I didn't update it. Because I'm thinking it's got to be my fault. How could Google screw this up? So we never found out what the problem was. They just kind of reset me.
And then once they did that, it kind of fixed it.
Well, but it took. We didn't come back up till Friday.
So how many
Because
days?
then the MX records had to repropagate,
Is
right?
that so you were out a day or more?
We're out roughly 2.5 days. And in that time, we had a guy who were gonna close on a sale, got upset, was like, I can't believe one of your salespeople is using AOL Mail because he used his personal account. And that was the end of that. And I was just like, you know what? This is, well, of course, in this, 2.5 days doesn't sound like a lot unless you can't get email, right?
Oh, 2.5 hours is a lot if you can't get email.
Yeah, I was on the phone and GoDaddy's like, well, 45% off, just throwing it out there.
Wow, I
Yeah.
would be moving off too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that, Office is no better, right? Like, it's just, one thing I've always liked about GoDaddy, and this is not a commercial for them because I don't think they sponsor us, is when I call, someone answers the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's someone who, like, I can understand, and they at least act like they feel your pain a little bit, like they're usually pretty good.
Receptive.
Yeah, and they're like, especially if you're a business customer and you're pissed off, they're usually like, or at least they toss you like $100 credit.
Yeah,
right.
That at least helps with the sting a little bit.
Google started from the position of, you must have fucked it up. It's got to be your fault, even if it is my fault. Fix
right?
it.
Yeah.
Like, it's $15 a month per user. It's not like free software.
You spent a lot of time in that zone,
Right.
though, so that kind of cost you some
And
time.
we've had other issues where a lot of customers are requesting to use Skype and just hate Google Hangout. So, like, there's other incentives to move off of it. But this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
I can imagine. Wow. All right, we've got a couple more emails to get to, and the next one's kind of an interesting question that I think some people have probably wondered, and I think have perhaps come to the wrong conclusion. But first, I want to thank Linux Academy. Head over to linuxacademy.com/coders and save on your subscription. And why would you want to subscribe to Linux Academy? Because they're always adding new content that you can learn and increase your skill set whenever you have the time. They have step-by-step video courses, downloadable, comprehensive study guides, and each course, as you go through it, if you get to a spot where this is something you have to do on the command line, you have to spin up a server for this. Well, they automatically do that. They have this awesome technology they just recently expanded upon. This is one of the things I love about Linux Academy, just a total aside. There are other online training platforms out there, and they're too widespread. They just do a shotgun approach to training. That's not Linux Academy. Linux Academy is backed by Linux and open source enthusiasts, designers, and educators that came together. They've created courseware that focuses on Linux and AWS, OpenStack, DevOps, which I know that now fits for a lot of you. Everything from just getting started with some of these technologies all the way to fully implementing them using one of the cool back-end technologies that they built, this lab system, where they automatically queue up and spin up multiple servers for you if you need it, with public IP addresses and an SSH login, and you can assign roles to these servers. And if you're doing an AWS courseware, they'll automatically spin up the AWS instance for you, and you don't have to worry about the charging or any of that because Linux Academy takes care of it. You can take their comprehensive guides, listen to them on the go, or if you're like Vegas Writer on Twitter, in the shower, why not, right? That's where he listens. You could. And the other cool thing is they're rolling out new features all the time. And I'm really excited about their learning plans that allow you to select how much time you have available. Say, hey, I got 20 minutes a night. I got 10 minutes. I have an hour on Saturday. You tell Linux Academy systems that their sweet dashboard automatically generates the courseware for you, gives you time estimations, gives you progress reports, recaps, reminds you of quizzes that are coming up. It is really cool. And then when time's available, as you have like maybe a little extra time here and there, you can participate in some of the live streams with the educators and things like that. There's so many great options over at Linux Academy, and they're constantly adding new courseware. That's where that subscription becomes more and more valuable because you're always going to see something new you want to experience. I've used it just to keep myself sharp. I've been lending out the login to, we have what's called a group system where we can have several people in the Jupiter Broadcasting Network that can log in under a group ID. It's great for group training. It's neat. A lot of systems, a lot of great technology all coming together, hyper-focusing on topics that our audience cares about and delivering the best educational experience with some of the coolest technology backing it. You got to go check it out. linuxacademy.com/coders. And a huge thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. linuxacademy.com/coders. Thank you to all of our viewers and listeners out there who visit that as well, to just let them know that you appreciate them supporting the show. Okay, Mike. Next email comes in from Sunder, I believe is how you say his name, and he has a question about the role that following other developers on social networks and news aggregation sites play in your life as an indie developer. Do you really learn anything out of the social echo chamber, as he calls it, and what part of your how much of your development time should be spent on such endeavors? What are your thoughts, Mike?
And yeah, because I read this email too a little earlier. I didn't understand what he meant by social echo chamber. Does he mean like Google Plus?
And Twitter, I'm sure, where it's sort of like a self-selecting audience where people all kind of agree.
I actually learn a lot on Twitter because I use Twitter and Pocket in conjunction to save things. One of the big things and one of the big mistakes I initially made was you want to follow people on Twitter you don't necessarily agree with.
That's an interesting
like
point.
if you like, I hate PHP with a passion. And I hate Node.
Huh. Oh, really?
But I follow Node and PHP people on Twitter. Because, I don't, up until recently, I didn't do a whole lot of .NET, right? But I've been following .NET people for years now.
Yeah. I actually take the same tact with podcasts. I don't, not religiously, not very frequently, but about once or twice a month, I tune into the Windows Weekly podcast just to hear what the hell's going on over in Redmond, because I really am not very good at updating myself in those areas because, like you just said, I don't care a lot about it. So having a good source that is in a consumable format makes me still current, helps me stay current on those topics. And the same thing like with Twitter, right? You select who you follow, and you can use it almost as a news feed.
Like, I'm not suggesting you torture yourself, right? Like, you don't follow, like, if you're a .NET developer, don't follow the most crazy Microsoft is evil, everybody who does C# is evil.
Yeah, right.
And those don't really exist anymore, or at least they're not popular.
Yeah,
but,
there's definitely a line I draw. Like, I don't, people that, there's just some people I don't follow on Twitter, even though it's for that exact reason. In fact, I think one of the more important things to take away from Twitter is be more selective of who you follow.
Right. I mean, Chris, I don't know if you've noticed, I have a personality flaw where I'm kind of a troll.
Oh, huh.
But I've actually actively tried to stop following prominent devs who are jerks.
Yeah.
Just because which is interesting because I don't follow myself.
Hey-o.
No, but I don't like the let's tear apart some open source project and make the person who worked on it cry approach.
He's a jackass.
Yeah, that's a jackass thing to do.
Like, that's just destructive and not really nice.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And I haven't really missed much.
Yeah, what are you getting out of that? Nothing other than drama and stress.
Which is fun, right? Like, to follow the angry blog posts is kind of fun. But you don't really learn anything from that. You just learn that and sometimes you reinforce prejudices, right? Like, oh, Ruby people are bitchy. Well, if you're following people who are actively mean to, who go on GitHub and send nasty comments to people.
A little
instead of 4.
Little subspace interference there. I agree with you, Mr. Dominic, and here's my kind of general curation approach. I'm pretty quick with the unfollow if I don't really know who the person is, but if if I've noticed a few times when I'm going through my feed that they don't really have anything relevant to my interests, I'm quick to unfollow because I believe that if they're worth following, they'll probably show up again at some point, and maybe I'll reconsider it because I'm also quick to refollow. Then the other thing I do is the people that I have found to actually produce good and relevant content, I definitely try to pay attention to who they're retweeting and who they're at replying and try to get a sense of who they're engaging with and then sometimes check those folks out. And it is kind of sweet because you can then plug your Twitter feed into it. There's a few different apps out there. I guess Pocket's one of them, right? Where you can plug your Twitter feed in and then it'll kind of go out and Sherlock Holmes some of the best stories from your feed for you automatically and then present them?
No. I don't think okay. Is there a way to do that automatically that I'm unaware of?
Oh, I don't know about Pocket. Like Flipboard does that.
Yeah, I tried Flipboard. Flipboard was super crashy for me. I just wasn't down with that.
Yeah. It's gotten better, I think, but I don't use it a lot.
It's been a while, so maybe it was
But it's kind of neat because it's it is relevant stuff. Like if you actively curate that Twitter feed, it can be just as useful as a good RSS feed. It doesn't have to be a social network. It doesn't have to be where you talk about sandwiches. It can just be a useful tool where you contact people, you make connections, you get answers, and you read feeds, and you can plug those feeds into some apps like Flipboard and stuff. Give it a shot, Thunder, and let us know, right? Why not?
I mean, Google Plus I think is pretty good too, but the problem is Google Plus tends to skew very strongly in a few directions. And also got super spammy now that people post memes on there all day long.
Yeah, there's that too. There is that. Well, Mr. Dominic.
Coderradio.com or damn.
Coderradio.reddit.com?
There you go.
Coderradio.reddit.com. All right, next email is in response to your pretty handsome plug for the Surface 3. He says, listening to Michael's recommendation of the Surface 3, and by the way, this is Steve. It's as the best laptop on the market today, I couldn't help but raise my hand. I recently was tasked with setting up one for an executive. The following are the problems that I faced. Number 1, until applying Windows updates, random shutdowns due to overheating, 6 or 7 on the first day. This is the Core i7 model, which is quite common. Number 2, out of the box, the Surface Pro 3 keyboard wasn't recognized by any driver. To fix this, I had to download a 200 megabyte zip of the firmware drivers from Microsoft.com. I manually installed 5 of them in Device Manager, then deleted 5 devices from Device Manager, rebooted several times. Number 3, it wouldn't power up on day 2. To fix this, I had to hold down the power plus volume up button for 15 seconds, then release both, hold power for 10 seconds, release, then press power. If it was my money, I would have returned it the same day and took home 3 or 4 new iPad Airs for less money. Big fan of the show. And he says, hoping I have some listeners in Kazash. What's Kazash? Kizash?
Oh.
Kizash? It's good, though. I'm sure he does.
Town.
So what do you think? Have you had any... So do you have a Surface 3? Is that right? Or you just think it's a good one?
Oh. No, I have a Surface 3 at work. Project manager is using it. No problems. I have heard of people having problems. Now, I'm thinking the Surface 3 we have is an i5. And I'm wondering if it's not the difference. Maybe there's something wrong with the driver.
It might run cooler.
Yeah. Because we've had no trouble at all. Like, it worked out of the box. One might even say that it just worked.
I don't know. I'm going to have to think differently about that. All right. Matthew writes in with one of our last emails, just on the lines of laptop recommendations. This is a topic that keeps coming up on the Coder Radio program. Matthew says, I spent last month looking for a good laptop. I wanted a large 1080p screen for gaming.
Well, aren't you out of luck?
Or for gaming-grade hardware. However, I didn't want a big gaming laptop, which looks like a transformer. I ended up with an Acer V17 Nitro Black Edition. I was hesitant to go with Acer. However, I'm incredibly happy with my choice. Not only does it have lots of horsepower, but it's very elegant looking. It has a nice backlit keyboard, 240 gigabyte SSD, and a terabyte spinning disk, a 1080p IPS display, top-end i7 processor, and an NVIDIA GTX 860M. I can get all my work done on it, and then I can switch over and play games if I have time. It came with the typical OEM bloatware, but it was easily solved by wiping it out and putting vanilla 8.1 Windows on there and Ubuntu 14.04. The specific SKU I got, was $1,300 on Newegg. I spent a lot of time looking at it, and it's easily the best laptop in this price range. I'd highly recommend giving the Acer V Nitro series a look. I think they have a winner on their hands. Kind regards, from the Maine.
Wow, yeah, I never would have considered Acer.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's maybe an old prejudice, because I think I was there too, but then when I actually think about some of their laptops that I've seen at conferences and stuff, they've been pretty nice.
Yeah, I remember them as like the crap, like this is the Walmart brand.
Yeah, but
I'm looking at it. It looks good. This is a good machine.
Yeah, I think I'm waiting for the page to load over here, but I think because they found themselves in the OEM position for so long, they got good at building hardware. It is a good-looking laptop, isn't it?
And it's Skype certified.
Oh, well, there you go, Mike. Job done. This is a biggin', though. This one's got the 17-inch screen. Hoo-wee, that's biggin'. This
is a beast. And it perfect to run BSD on.
PC BSD at that. In the back of my mind, as the end of the year approaches, I start thinking about taxes and last chance to have a write-off, and I start thinking about computer hardware, and sometimes it's just, sometimes I just start to get that itch, and I'm feeling it right now a little bit. We've been talking about hardware. I think it's giving me the new rig itch a little bit.
Now, are you looking for? You should just get a Retina iMac.
Oh, your face, dude. Your face. All right. So we have some hoopla that I have been waiting to hear all day. But before we get to that, I want to thank DigitalOcean. Head over to DigitalOcean.com. DigitalOcean.com is actually recommended to me originally by Mike, but it is really something you've got to check out. I was sort of like, oh, Mike, DigitalOcean, this is interesting. Mike's like, yeah, check it out. No, really, you should check it out. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. He's like, no, really, you should go check it out. It's kind of cool. So I did. Now, this is a little bit before they became a sponsor. So even before they became a sponsor, I'd spun up my first droplet. And I was blown away. And it's only gotten better. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. And it's nuts. It's game-changing. It's like nobody else has ever done it before. Really, ever. And users can usually get started in about less than 55 seconds. Their pricing plans start at only $5 per month. That'll get you 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer, connected to some of the best data centers in the world. DigitalOcean has locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. But it's that interface. It's always going to be the go-to thing because there's no barrier to entry here. You're going to be able to take advantage of a worldwide distributed data center with private networkings, backups, DNS management, HTML5 consoles, KVM virtual machine creation, and you don't have to know what any of that means because it's just click, click, click. And if you do know what that means, you are so damn impressed at how easy it is to get going and how fast. 55 seconds is kind of like their safety number, but I've heard even people get up going even faster than that. And you can really take it up to the next level with their straightforward API. Developers are creating applications today that use the API that allow you to take the power of DigitalOcean's dashboard and take it even further. Integrate it in with your system. Script it, automate it, tied into applications. It's so cool. And, you know, when you have a great API, people actually use it, especially for a popular service like DigitalOcean. Now, we've been talking about how DigitalOcean is seeking tutorials for their community. And now they're willing to pay up to $200 if you write one of these tutorials because they want to have the best. And they're willing to pay to have the best. And they've had a bit of a problem. It's a good problem, but they have a bit of a problem. A lot of you have tried it out. And a lot of you are writing some really great tutorials. In fact, so many that DigitalOcean is actually opening another position to keep up with demand. So they have a job opening right now for a content editor position. So if you're fluent in some of this stuff, or you've written some tutorials before, you might want to check it out. We got a link on our show notes. You might be able to get a gig out of it. How cool is that? It's like this, you guys go, you know, you support our sponsors, you support the show, they grow now. Maybe they'll even hire one of you. It'd be kind of amazing. If you get the gig, you got to let us know if you get the gig. So go over to DigitalOcean right now. Check them out. Use our promo code, CODERNOVEMBER. That's going to get you a $10 credit. You apply that to your account. That's one of the things I love about DigitalOcean is you can have a pre-applied balance, which for me is awesome because I go in there, I put that promo code in there, I got the $10 credit, and I just ran it. I didn't have to put my credit card in there. And you can do the same thing. CODERNOVEMBER. Get that $10 credit. Try out the $5 droplet for free for 2 months. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Mr. Dominic, a little birdie told me that you have been in a state of full stack hoopla. What is going on?
Yeah, so this article came out from TechCrunch, the death of the full stack developer.
Dun, dun, dun.
He's dead. He's never coming
Crap. I consider myself a full stack kind of guy. Full stack of pancakes, though.
I'm a half stack kind of guy, but that's because I've been putting on some weight recently.
That's probably good. It's probably good.
Yeah, so they're all dead now.
All these full stack developers, just like that.
The meteor came.
Yeah, it happened on November 7th, 2014, and TechCrunch wrote about it on November 8th, 2014.
Yep, that was it.
It seems as though everyone in the tech today is infatuated with the full stack developer. Full stack may have been possible in the Web 2.0 era, but the new generation of startups is emerging, pushing the limits of virtually all areas of software, from machine intelligence to predictive push computing. Oh, predictive push computing. Is that like Google now? I guess. Predictive push computing. To data analytics, mobile, wearable, and more. It's becoming virtually impossible for a single developer to program across the full modern stack. You agree with this, Mike? Now, they're saying the full stack is everything from predictive push computing to wearables.
Right. So yeah, if you're saying full stack means like every theoretical device you could ever use, and okay, but I mean, come on, right?
That's not how software is developed in the real world. Software is developed for a use case. Somebody comes to you and says, we have this thing we need to do, and we need it to work on these things. They don't come to you and say, make this imaginary application and make it work on all of the imaginary things. That's just not how development works. It's way more pragmatic. It's not pie in the sky like that.
Right. We would like to see this run on all theoretical devices ever. Well,
said no one ever.
Right. It's like, okay, sure. Like, no one person can do that. You got it, Chief. Like, okay. Didn't full stack used to mean I could do the front end and the back end?
Yeah,
like,
that's what I thought full stack meant. Yeah, but now
usually that meant like you could do a front end and a back end.
Yeah,
right? Like you could do a iOS app.
Right.
The Ruby on Rails back end was a very common combination.
Or for a while it was I'll write something on the front end and it'll talk to our backend Java server.
Right.
They say by the late 2000s it became impossible for programmers. It became possible for many programmers to deliver a complete consumer software-as-a-service suite, including a dynamic web client, server-side business logic, and a scalable database deployment and operational support. This new breed of full-stack developer could run circles around teams of programmers attempting the same task. When projects scaled up, adding more full-stack programmers allowed a single person to add a single feature across all the tiers of an application, which accelerated feature delivery over the communication overhead of having different people own the feature in each tier. Holy shit, that is thick. That has got to be one of the thickest paragraphs I've read on this show.
Well, it's crazy. It's like let's add as much as we can to this list, and of course it's going to be impossible, right?
Here's what really kind of I hate to take to this. I hate to go to the thing that always bothers me, but this is what bothers me about this. People who don't know shit about development, have probably never written a line of code, don't have any idea about the concepts, then go and get paid to write articles about them that need to get clicks, that need to have artwork, that have to be published up on sites that need to sound fancy. And there's an entire industry of these people. And to me, they look like leeches that suck off the back of actual workers.
Right.
Like, you see this in the open source community, too. A lot of community managers, a lot of people who are hands-on with community and all that.
Easy on the community managers.
I'm just saying, a lot of times
you
get people that want to get involved in open source, but they don't know how to write a single line of code, but they still got to be involved in open source, so they insert themselves somewhere. Sometimes it's good. Full stop. Sometimes it's not. I feel like it's the same thing with this type of journalism. Sometimes you can have somebody who can sit back and analyze the business logic and have a valid point and write up a great piece, even though they've never written any code. And then other times, you get people like this author that write this stuff. That doesn't contribute anything to the discussion. It muddies it up. It sort of adds to this mythology around development. That this sort of obfuscation of what the real work actually is. I think it's a disservice.
I think it's a great headline, right? The death. Like when you can start a headline with anything that starts with the death of insert noun here, right?
Well, and I think I fundamentally, yes, I understand. But see, I don't think it's just about getting the headlines. I think they actually are buying this. I think they've sold this line of crap to themselves.
So I read the article, and I'm like, well, that's great on the high end, but you know what's really hurting full stack developers on the low end? Parse. Because there's no need on the low end for that kind of thing anymore. Windows services, Windows Azure mobile services, whatever they call it. Heroku has a thing now for it. Like, everybody has this back end in a box. That's making it less, on the lower side of life, less advantageous to be full stack. Right, because you're really being judged on front end, and it's all about front end.
Here's where I think this piece falls apart in two bits. Number one, I think the premise is wrong, and here's the premise. We are in the midst of a rapid shift to a more complicated technologies that, as in days gone by, require experts at each tier. So I would say in some regards, development is so much easier than it used to be. Like, when you write for mobile, what do you just get? when you get mobile, you automatically get an update channel. You get a back-end push integration system. You get GPS that's already been written for you. It is so much easier to integrate in with services like OneDrive and Google Compute and iCloud. There is so much more resources. So little infrastructure is actually, back in the day, if you wanted to have a push notification service, you better deploy a server that can manage all of those users. And when you get more users, you have to deploy more servers. That's not a problem that developers have to worry about anymore if they choose not to. It is actually, in some regards, so much easier to develop software than it was 10 years ago. So full stop right there. I disagree with the premise. But then in sort of a point that torpedoes the entire article, the author then says, in a brave new world, it is critical to have at least one person with a functional understanding each of the comprising parts of who is capable of connecting various tiers and working with experts so that each feature can be actually delivered. In a way, these tier connecting bridge building software architects, who will likely be experts in only one or a few of the couple tiers, won't be full stack developers, they're full stack integrators.
Which is a mean, right. So it's funny, right? Okay. How do you define full stack developer? Is it someone who every day writes, an equal amount of one platform or the other, or is it someone who, because by that definition, no one is a full stack developer,
right? And at the same time, they're saying they say the full stack developer is dead. Nobody can be a full stack developer, but what you need to pull it off is somebody who knows a lot of the important tiers, who knows how to make it all work together, and can build the bridges. Well, wouldn't that be somebody that knows the full stack then? Aren't you? Isn't the very premise
you're
giving it up right there, right?
Because most current, in quotes, full stack developers have a primary thing that they usually work on, but they may also know something else as a secondary skill, right? And they're not going to be as good as, for instance, I can kind of do Rails. I haven't done it in a long time. In fact, I can make a Rails API run, but we have a Rails guy at FTT that's far better than me because his primary is Ruby on Rails, right? He's more up to date than I am.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And my primary is generally Cocoa. So it's a little... I think it's a little dangerous what TechCrunch is saying, because first of all, small companies are not going to be able to have a MongoDB guy, right? It's just not going to happen.
Right.
You might have quote front end guys and back end guys.
But your armchair CTOs, they read this stuff. This builds the expectation. That's why I don't like it. That's where my frustration comes from. Is where I say it's a little irresponsible. Is I see the same thing happen in the Linux community. There's people who are not really following Linux that closely, but still choose to write about it because it makes them money. And so their armchair commentary.
Well, and the other thing, dev is such a weird business to be in. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
It's such a weird business to be in, to say that, oh, well, this didn't work for, my friend's company, so it's not going to work for you.
Right, because it's always so individually dependent.
The personalities come into play.
The goal of the project, what you're actually building, the scope of work are different for every project.
The tools you're using, is the company using a good bug tracking solution like GitHub or GitLab, or are they using Post-it notes?
And email, that's the other common one.
Right.
Email.
Are you using source control, or are you sending zip freaking bundles around? There's so many other factors other than, we only hire specialists here, because what happens if you're a super specialist and the hot thing you're working on is no longer hot?
Then you're like Taylor Swift and you pull out of Spotify.
Dude, I am so upset. I feel like I just might shake.
Oh, gosh. I think that might be one of her songs, but I don't actually know.
If anybody's wondering what the reasons for the teardrops on my guitar are, it's Taylor Swift.
Wow. So I guess we've made our point on this. I look back at this and I think, just to finish my thought, is I see that the Linux community, this happens to as well, and it sort of sets a tone. Even if it's a little bit at a time, it moves the marker of the conversation. So the goalpost in the conversation, instead of being about the practical work cases and the work at hand and the real semantics of development, it sort of moves into this hyperbole, sort of ambiguous terminology where there's room for definition disagreement, and people who are not really involved with the work have lots of things to quibble about and say. It's the same people who like to argue about the shade of blue but don't have any input on the actual implementation of some of the infrastructure.
No, we call those stakeholders.
Yeah, this is something that gives those stakeholders a little bit more to have a hold on. This is for the stakeholders. That's who this article is for. It's for the
thing is,
stakeholders.
this is so wishy-washy. It's not like a cardinal truth. Like, something that is a cardinal truth. C# is better than Java, right? Like, we can all agree on that.
What?
What?
I'm sorry, what?
I don't believe
I
you.
don't know. What happened?
What?
Inappropriate?
Yes.
I'm just seeing if you're paying attention, Chris.
Hello, everybody.
Barack, we need to talk about my affordable health care, because goddamn.
Not so affordable, is it?
It's
That's how we
right.
go-
I used to have
that's
a
how we
car
roll.
payment. This is literally double what my car payment was.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
don't have kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don't be married.
Well, yeah. All right, boy. I think that brings it. Wait, if we're getting into politics, I think that means we're coming to an end, aren't we? I think that means we're slowing down on the off ramp here. Anything else we want to
Yeah.
cover, Mr. Dominic?
No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the full stack development graveyard with
Yeah.
the rest of my kin.
Yeah. I feel like I need to go over to IHOP and get me some pancakes after this here show. I tell you that much, Mr. Dominic.
It better be a half stack.
Yeah, for the health, right? I feel maybe I'll just do a couple of pancakes, a little bacon, some sausage. I'll be okay. I'll be all right. It's all about that syrup.
I'll be looking for a new host.
All right, well, why don't you join us live? We do this show Monday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern over at jblive.tv, coderradio.reddit.com. Go there, engage in the conversation, give us some ideas for topics, and email us. It's a huge part of our show. jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and choose Coder Radio from the drop-down. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send folks throughout the week?
Yes, go to fingertip.technology.
Boom. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.